Not that you'd want him to do that. But as I often say about Bruce Lee, and I say about this bathrobe session, don't focus on what happens here. You'll miss all that celestial beauty, which is what he said to one of the young cub taekwondo masters in Enter the Dragon. Only the second greatest quote in that, or the third greatest. I have to give the first two to the great thespian Jim Kelly, who, when he's riding the junk boat through the harbor, looks around and goes, man, ghettos are the same all over the world, which is genius. And then when the Han threatens him at his desk table in his office, Jim Kelly flips the desk. He says, bullshit, Mr. Handman. You are right out of a cartoon. Beautiful stuff. Whatever happened to Jim Kelly? I thought he was the next Paul Robeson. Number one, exercise the demon on YouTube, then up close and personal. 3, Pierre from Olympia, Washington. Dennis, a double question. Strap in here. You recently used a hilarious analogy about how little you care about the power of 2 telescopes. Oh no, it was George S. Kaufman's story. What was it? Maybe you'll feel tempted to relate it to my second question. It's a Dick Cavett story that Dick passed on to me. His beautiful Stanford White House out at the tip of Montauk, and we sat out there one day and he regaled me with the most fascinating showbiz stories. Groucho, Brando, Jackie O, every O. And my favorite being George S. Kaufman. Back in the early 50s, before they had videotape capability on television, they were filling 18 hours a day with live television. Very expensive proposition. You can only do so many Playhouse 90s. You have to do filler. And one of the things they filled with was game shows. Low overhead, didn't cost them much, easy to produce, based out of New York. So they're doing a show, and I might be wrong in the title, called Take a Chance, but it's something akin to that. And the unwieldy proposition of the show is a young New York talent comes on, a la Joe Franklin, and tells his problem to a panel of experts, and then goes and performs, and then they come back and ostensibly the panel's supposed to help him out with his problem. All they're trying to do is shoehorn another half hour into the viewing day. The premise is to kind of get some humor going on the panel and to get the performer out there. Eddie Fisher comes out, he's 19, he's performing at the Copacabana. And he says to the panel, you know, I work at the Copacabana, but none of the showgirls will go out with me because I'm too short and I'm too young. And he goes over and sings, comes back, they go to the panel, they open with George S. Kaufman, he's in the one hole, he looks at Fisher, he says, you know, Mr. Fisher, in California on Mount Wilson, there's a reflecting telescope that has the capability of taking an object 10,000 miles away and making it appear as if it is 4 feet away. Now, under construction in California on Mount Palomar, there's a reflecting telescope that will have twice the capability of the Mount Wilson telescope. Now, Mr. Fisher, if you took the Mount Wilson telescope and put it inside the Mount Palomar telescope, you still could not see my interest in your problem. Scaramouche! Oh, that's one of my favorite showbiz stories. And Fisher's standing, he doesn't even realize he's just been disemboweled. And part 2, what do you think of the sport of soccer? I'm a fairly recent fan and have yet to hear you opine on the beautiful game. Well, I must say it grows on me as I get older because I think there's so many stop downs in football now that I like the fact that soccer kind of starts and goes for 45 minutes, albeit with some interruptions and some fake falls. I'll never like it as much as football, but I must say football has gone a little off in my view because there's so many stop downs, and I hate all the replays, and they've ruined the game for me. It used to be a place where I would go on Sundays to get away from the overly neurotic quest for perfection in day-to-day life and just enjoy some sort of visceral pleasure from great athletes on the field. But now they've micromanaged football to the point where it's just an elongation of the work week. To me, all these stop downs every third play, let's replay that to see if it was 2 inches. I guess they've won the perfection war, and it is a Pyrrhic victory because they've lost me to a large extent as a viewer. Soccer, not perfect, and I find the lack of scoring to be You know, I went to a World Cup soccer final once and it finished 0-0. I remember thinking, here, let me decide this by putting a bullet in my head. And wherever side my brains come out, that's the team who wins. It was the most boring sport day I've ever seen. So I don't like it within a million miles of football, but I would say it's on its ascendancy curve, and football's on its descendancy curve. And beware the quest for perfection. Madness that way goes. Gary, let's follow you into hell, you magnificent sons of bitches. You are without a doubt the foulest now, dirtiest, raunchiest, meanest group of men that I've ever had the pleasure to command. Enjoy these samples of the Bathrobe Sessions, a weekly video available only to members of the DMZ, the Dennis Miller Zone on DennisMillerRadio.com.